If you had asked me 6 months ago what happiness looked like, I would have described a little blue house with a maple tree that flared orange in October, a coffee pot that clicked on at 6:45 a.m., and a man named Ethan Carter who could fix anything but the way I laughed when he messed up the lyrics to old Motown songs. We weren't perfect, but we felt inevitable. We met at a hardware store after my sink betrayed me on a Sunday, Ethan in a faded gray tee, explaining supply lines like poetry, me pretending to understand while memorizing the slope of his smile. 2 years later, he proposed under a string of cafe lights and a sky that had the decency to keep from raining. If there was one person who could have ruined it, I would have put every dollar I had on myself. I've been my own worst enemy since middle school. I never would have bet on Hannah, my beautiful, complicated sister with a streak of lightning under her skin and a talent for arriving exactly when the music started and leaving before the check came. She was the kind of person who made a room hotter when she entered and colder when she left. I loved her with the kind of loyalty that doesn't ask for receipts. When her lease fell through in December, I didn't hesitate. "Crash with us a while," I said, "till you figure stuff out." "You sure?" she asked, eyelashes fluttering like apologies. "She's sure," Ethan answered, already carrying in a box labeled Wilderness Candles plus Regrets. I smiled, and the maple tree tapped the window like fingers on a drum. I had no idea it was counting down. We set simple rules. Label leftovers, rinse dishes, don't wake the house after midnight. Ethan added, "And don't rearrange the sockets. I know where everything plugs." Which made me roll my eyes and made Hannah laugh. At first, it worked. Dinners turned into game nights, and game nights turned into long talks where the three of us built castles out of future plans. Ethan would fix up the garage. I'd start my home baking side gig. Hannah would finally launch the vintage clothing shop she'd sketched into every notebook she owned. But then I noticed patterns that didn't fit. Ethan lingering at the table after I cleared plates. Hannah staying to help him calibrate the espresso machine he'd been calibrating since 2019. Soft laughter from the kitchen at 1:12 a.m. The sound of a spoon against ceramic. A tiny bell of domestic intimacy. I scolded my suspicion like a dog that wouldn't stop barking. "You're just tired. You're wedding-brained. They're family." The day I found Ethan's sweatshirt in Hannah's room, I carried it back myself. "He was cold," she said, not looking up from the thrift store spreadsheet open on her laptop. "We were in the garage." "We?" I asked. "Chill, detective." She flashed me a smile bright enough to blind. "He was showing me how to strip paint. I'm going to rescue a dresser." "It's a metaphor." "For what?" I wanted to ask. Instead, I laughed like the cool sister, but metaphors don't need permission to stick. Our wedding planning began as a quilt of joy and turned into a patchwork of compromises. Ethan wanted navy suits. I wanted charcoal. Mom wanted daisies. I wanted peonies. Hannah wanted to DJ the reception. Trust me, I have taste. And I wanted to survive the day without her remixing the vows. One night, I woke to the glow under the bedroom door. Voices. I checked my phone. 2:37 a.m. Ethan wasn't in bed. I padded to the kitchen and stopped short. Ethan and Hannah stood shoulder to shoulder at the sink, whispering like conspirators. When Ethan saw me, he flinched. Hannah didn't. She just smiled that slow, impossible smile and said, "Couldn't sleep. We made cocoa." "I can see that," I said, looking at the two mugs, the steam rising in parallel. Ethan pushed one toward me. "Yours." I took the cup, burned my tongue, and decided that sleeping with the lights on was a childish fear compared to sleeping with your eyes closed. The day it all cracked was a Thursday, with gray like a bruise pressed against the sky. A catering misprint had swapped our entree choices. My manager piled a last-minute deadline on my desk, and all I wanted was to go home early with Ethan's favorite Thai takeout and a truce flag pinned to my chest. The house was too quiet when I opened the door. A shoe at the foot of the stairs, Hannah's red heel. Ethan's belt draped over the banister like a snake shedding skin. My body knew before my mind allowed the math. I climbed the stairs in a dream where the floor tilts and the hallway gets longer. My bedroom door was ajar. I pushed it open and heard my life split. They were there. Ethan's back, Hannah's breath, the sheets that still smelled faintly like the lavender wash I loved, because Ethan had once said it made our bed feel like a vacation. The sound I made wasn't human. It was a fire alarm. Hannah grabbed the blanket. Ethan fell out of the moment like a man tumbling down a well. "Ava, don't," I said. "Don't use my name." The red heel lay on the carpet like evidence. The window was open. The maple tree scratched the glass. Rain slid down the pane like an apology that had missed its deadline. I don't remember pouring the Thai food into the trash, but I remember the smell of basil and betrayal. I don't remember what I threw first, but I remember the sound of wood breaking and how satisfying it was to destroy something that wasn't me. We didn't speak in sentences at first, just fragments. "How long?" "It's not how long." 3 weeks, Hannah choked out. "It was an accident." "An accident is breaking a plate," I said. "You don't trip and land in my fiancé." Ethan stepped toward me. "I'm so sorry. Did you love me when you started?" I asked. He opened his mouth and closed it. Hannah stared at the floor. That was the answer. I walked to the dresser where I kept the ring box for nights I took it off to shower. I placed the diamond inside like a tiny coffin and snapped it shut. "Get out," I told Ethan. "Pack a bag. I'll ship the rest." "And me?" Hannah whispered. "You?" I said, tasting iron. "You don't live here anymore." The next week moved like thick syrup. People asked questions as if the answers would change the plot. Mom cried into a dish towel and said, "She's your sister. Blood fixes blood." Dad drove to Ethan's rental and returned with the ring box and a face like carved wood. He didn't say what he said to Ethan. He didn't have to. Friends picked sides they pretended weren't sides. Some texted variations of whatever you need. Others delivered gossip under the flag of concern. Someone sent a selfie of Ethan at a bar with Hannah, captioned, "This you?" I turned my phone face down and let the screen light the dark table like a lighthouse for ships I refused to board. At work, the word fiancé was a fragile ornament I took down and packed away. I told HR the wedding was postponed. I didn't say canceled. There are lies so soft you can sleep on them for a while. Nights were louder. Every room had a replay button. The bedroom was a crime scene, but the kitchen was worse. 2 mugs, parallel steam. I sold the espresso machine on Marketplace to a couple who arrived holding hands and left grinning about latte art. I stood in the doorway and tried not to be jealous of milk. Grief isn't linear. It's a carousel with missing horses. I went to therapy because the alternative was Googling how to stitch yourself back together and ordering needles from Amazon. My therapist, a woman with kind eyes and shoes that squeaked when she crossed her legs, said, "You're allowed to be angry at them without being angry at yourself." Am I allowed to be angry at both? I asked. Yes, but one is useful and the other isn't. I started running because I needed proof my heart could keep up. I started baking again because butter listens. I repainted the bedroom wall a green that didn't exist in any memory I shared with Ethan. I moved the bed to a different wall and slept diagonally, staking a claim to the kind of space no one can steal. Hannah texted in paragraphs and then in silence. I messed up. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to fall. I read them the way a museum guard looks at tourists, alert, unmoved, knowing one of us would break something if we got too close. One night, after 5 miles and a shower so hot it felt punitive, I saw Ethan's name on my phone. Please talk. I didn't. Some bridges burn you simply for standing near them. 2 months later, I ran into them at the farmer's market, where tomatoes line up like rubies, and everyone agrees kale is a personality. They were together, of course. Hannah wore my old denim jacket without irony. Ethan had grown a beard, as if hair could disguise the architecture beneath. We locked eyes across the peaches. For a heartbeat, we were a photograph no one would frame. "Hey," Ethan said, voice low, like we were still sharing secrets between pillowcases. "Hi," Hannah added, too bright. "New jacket?" I asked, looking straight at Hannah. She had the grace to flush. Yeah, sorry." "Don't be," I said lightly. "It looks better on me." Then I picked up a peach, pressed it gently, and put it down. "So, how's Betrayal? Farm to table?" Ethan swallowed. "Ava, please." "You wanted a conversation," I said. "This is my half," Hannah flinched. "You're not the only one who got hurt." "Correct," I said. "I'm the one who got hurt first." The vendor cleared his throat. I paid for nothing and left with everything I needed. The knowledge that the sight of them no longer felt like a blade. It felt like a warning label. Keep out of reach. A week after the market, an email arrived. Subject line, "You can delete this." I hovered for a long minute and clicked. Hannah wrote, "I know I'm the villain in your movie. I deserve it. I also know you loved me when no one else did. I don't have an excuse, but I do have a reason, which you're free to throw away." She wrote about loneliness, about the way Ethan listened to her talk about failure without trying to fix her, the way he made coffee the morning our mom forgot her birthday. She wrote about the night she kissed him in the garage, how he pulled away, how she kissed him again, how they stepped over a line like it was chalk on a playground. "You were the safe one," she wrote. "I've been unsafe my entire life. I mistook gravity for love. She ended with, "I don't want forgiveness. I want to be someone who could earn it. If I ever do, I'll know it wasn't because you owed me." I closed my laptop and stared at the maple tree. The wind shook it, and a flurry of last year's leaves let go. Even dead things fall beautifully if you give them time. Forgiveness gets marketed like a spa day, but it's closer to surgery without anesthesia. I made a list. Things I could hold, things I could release, things I could set on fire and dance around. I met Mom for coffee and told her I wasn't going to split holidays like a custody agreement. "If Hannah's there, I won't be," I said gently. "Not yet." "That's going to break her heart," Mom whispered. "It's already broken mine," I said. "And I'm the only one who can fix it." I sent Hannah one sentence. "I got your email. I need time." To Ethan, I sent nothing. Time is a message, too. The garage had always been Ethan's kingdom. Tools on pegboards, jars of screws labeled like spices. I opened the door, flicked the light, and felt a muscle I didn't know I had release. This was my house. I was tired of flinching at shadows. I hired a contractor and converted the garage into a studio with a deep sink, warm lights, and a butcher block counter. I baked through the winter, sugar blooming in the air, cinnamon sticking to my hair. An elderly neighbor named Marion stopped by for a taste and stayed to write Yelp reviews with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice. The first Saturday I sold out of cardamom buns by noon. I cried in the walk-in like a person who'd found a door in a wall they had assumed was load-bearing. Marion tapped the door. "Sweetheart, there's a line." "I'm coming," I sniffed, wiped my eyes, and went back to the counter. My hands were steady. My voice was sure. My heart was a room with new paint and a lock I controlled. Spring arrived in a rush of daffodils and joggers. One evening, as the light folded itself neatly under the horizon, there was a knock at my door. Hannah stood on the porch alone, hair tucked behind her ears, palms empty. "I should have texted," she said, "but I didn't think you'd say yes." "I wouldn't have," I said. "Say what you came to say." "I'm leaving," she blurted. "Portland. A friend has a spare room. I got a job at a consignment boutique, and I'm going to take classes. Business, not art. Turns out you can learn the thing you keep failing at." She smiled, small and real. "I wanted to tell you to your face." And her voice shook. "I'm sorry, Ava. Not because I got caught. Because I did it." I watched her for a long breath. "Do you love him?" Her eyes filled. "I thought I did. Maybe I loved the version of me he saw when you weren't around. That's not love. That's shoplifting. Do you two?" "We're done," she said. It's not a life. It's a mistake stretched over 3 weeks. We stood in the soft twilight and let the bugs do the talking. Finally I nodded. "Thank you for coming. Will you hug me?" she asked, voice so small it made something in me ache. "Not today," I said. "Someday, maybe. I need the choice to be mine." She accepted it like medicine, bitter and necessary, and walked away. I watched until the sidewalk ended. A month later, Ethan asked for 5 minutes. I agreed to 2 and set a timer on my phone. He stood on my porch with the beard gone and the same brown eyes I had once called home. "I'm in therapy," he started. "I know that's not points on a board. What do you want, Ethan?" I asked. "To say I'm sorry, not for the pain, though God knows I am. For the person I was when I did it. I was a coward who wanted to be adored and never questioned. You deserve a partner who doesn't mistake your strength for an excuse to be weak." I let the timer run out and silenced it without looking away. "You've said it," I replied. "Here's mine. I loved you in present tense. I don't anymore. That isn't cruelty. It's a fact I earned the hard way." He nodded, took a breath that sounded like surrender, and left. Some doors close quietly. Others teach you the sound of an ending. The bakery took off like a rumor people wanted to believe. I named it Maple and Motown because the tree was my witness and the music had saved us once. Saturday mornings, the line snaked past the porch. People told me about their divorces, their sons, their dogs, the way cinnamon rolls taste like forgiveness if you eat them slowly. One morning, a woman about my age stood at the counter turning her ring, left hand, emerald, delicate. "I'm getting married next month," she said with a nervous laugh. "I don't know why I'm telling a stranger." "You're not," I said. "You're telling a baker. We translate nerves into butter," she exhaled. "Is it crazy to be terrified and happy at the same time?" "It's human," I said. "Order the lemon bars. They're brave." When she left, Marion elbowed me gently. "You're good at this." "Baking?" "Letting people believe in mornings." In late summer, a postcard arrived from Portland. A thrifted floral print backed by the skyline at dusk. Classes started. I got an A on my first midterm. I haven't earned anything with you yet, but I'm still trying. Love. HI turned the card over and over until the corners softened. There are people who were born knowing how to apologize. We weren't those people. We were learning. I wrote back 3 weeks later. "I'm proud of you. Keep going. I didn't sign love. Not because it wasn't true, but because I was saving the word for a day. It would feel like a bridge, not a debt." On the first cold day of October, the maple went from green to fire overnight. I made a pot of strong coffee and sat on the porch steps in a sweater that could double as a blanket. A man jogging by paused, hands on hips, breath clouding. "You sell the cardamom buns?" "Inside," I laughed. "Bring cash." The square reader chose violence today. He returned a few minutes later with 2 buns. "One for you," he said, eyes kind and tired. "I'm Ben." We ate on the steps, not flirting so much as practicing being people in the same world. He told me he taught 8th grade science, that he liked a clean whiteboard and messy weekends. I told him I used to think love was a straight line leading to a cake and a first dance. He said, "Nah, it's a weird graph with outliers." When he left, I realized I'd smiled without checking to see if anyone was watching. That night, my phone buzzed. Hannah again. "I heard about Maple and Motown from Mom. She won't shut up about the buns. I'm glad you built it. I'm glad you stayed." I typed and deleted 3 responses. Then, "Thank you for saying that." "I'm okay. More than okay some days." She sent a photo of a classroom whiteboard. Intro to Retail Ops. Hannah guest speaker. She wrote, "They asked me to talk about failure and inventory. I'm qualified in both." I laughed, alone and not lonely. "Break a leg," I wrote. Or, don't. I promise I won't sleep with the professor, she replied, arrowing a joke into a wound we had both decided to stop reopening. Progress isn't always pretty. Sometimes it's a text that lands without detonating. I didn't mark the day the wedding would have been on a calendar, but my bones remembered. It came in quiet, a blue morning, a colder shower, a muffin that rose wrong. I honored it with a walk to the lake and a promise whispered into the wind. I will not let what you took decide what I keep. On the way back, I passed a church lawn where a bride and groom posed under a crooked arch, while a photographer shouted, "Laugh! Laugh like you didn't plan anything!" I smiled at the audacity of it all. Some people get the life they schedule. Others build the life they can hold. Both are a kind of miracle. Ben stopped by most Saturdays around 10. Sometimes he bought buns, sometimes coffee, sometimes nothing at all. Just stood at the counter and told me about the kid who'd successfully launched a paper rocket into the ceiling fan. He didn't ask for my number. I didn't offer it. We were two people circling a pond, waving when we passed. One Sunday, he knocked after closing with a Tupperware of something warm. "Chili," he said. "Emergency delivery." "You look like the kind of person who forgets to eat when she's busy." "I am," I admitted. He set it on the counter. "I can go. Or I can fix the leaky faucet I heard from the porch. I'm handy with wrenches and adolescents," I laughed. "Stay." We ate from mismatched bowls at the butcher block while the faucet behaved under his stern attention. He didn't ask about Ethan. I didn't ask about the divorce he mentioned once. We learned the topography of now. On the last warm evening of the year, I dragged a chair under the maple and watched leaves let go with the elegance of parachutes. I thought about love and betrayal, about sisters and men and the houses we keep. I thought about the younger version of me who believed a ring was a destination instead of a tool. My phone buzzed. A new postcard from Portland. A thrifted blazer with perfect seams. Got the shop assistant manager job. I'm earning trust by counting buttons. I hope your trees are turning. I took a picture of the maple and sent it back. They always do. Inside, the kitchen light glowed warm. Tomorrow I would wake at 4:30, proof dough, brew coffee. Maybe Ben would stop by. Maybe not. Either way, I would be okay. Better than okay. I would be the person I chose when everything else was choosing me back or not at all. They say forgiveness is for the forgiver, not the forgiven. I don't know if that's true, but here's what I do know. I forgave myself first, for trusting, for loving, for missing the signs, for surviving anyway. And when the last leaf let go and spiraled down, landing on my lap like a blessing, I realized the truth I wish I could whisper to anyone with a ring in a box and a sister at the door. You cannot lose what was never yours to keep, but you can grow what is. I stood, carried the chair back inside, and locked the door. Not because I was afraid, because I had learned where I lived.